Welcome to Relax with Reddit.
Today's sub, NoSleep. I found out something strange about my coworkers at work. Now I know why. I did a double take when I heard him say it and stopped. It was unbelievable. I was signing out from work and getting ready to leave when my boss called me over to talk to me. He then pulled out an old electronic, one I hadn't seen for many years but was full of happy memories to me. My boss, who I imagined was well in his 40s and was a respectable looking man in a suit, pulled out one of those probably long forgotten old handheld PlayStations and put it on his desk in front of me. "I know you like these," he told me. "I heard a rumor about it in the office." This also made me stop for a moment. I hadn't told anybody about this. The truth was that even though I was now older and wearing suits and working in an office too, I did, somewhat to my embarrassment, hold on to these old habits of playing games. I'd even kept all those old possessions I'd had as a child, including this PlayStation handheld my boss had put on the desk in front of me. I had a whole cabinet at home full of games, and, secretly, played them for hours after work still. Even now, I felt my face heat up a little bit by this revelation in front of everybody, but was pretty much cornered. I admitted it. "Yeah," I said, pausing deeply. "You know, I had it and played it all the time growing up, and held on to all of those games just kind of out of nostalgia, I guess." It was a half-truth. "Anyway, why don't we play it together after work?" he asked me. Now I was really taken aback. Everybody in the office was watching. "Sure, that's fine," I eventually said. We then exchanged contact information, and we actually did it. I played an old PlayStation handheld game from my childhood with my current boss. Soon after, I found out that everyone in the office held onto these old games too. An entire community of adult gamers, just like I was, in front of me this entire time, and I hadn't known it. Soon we were all exchanging contact information and playing each other online. As if this wasn't strange enough, having an entire office of suited workers playing video games with each other during and after work, it only got stranger. Soon I was hearing slang and words that I hadn't heard since I was playing these games growing up. Words like L33T and N00B and others that I'd long since forgotten until now. The entire atmosphere of the office had changed. I saw action figures and collectibles on co-workers' desks now. People were messaging each other and chatting during work about the games openly. Everything was different. But something, a small, nagging voice inside me, told me that this was actually strange. That this wasn't just a fun coincidence that everyone in the office happened to share this strange nostalgic hobby with me. Then I found something online that confirmed this. It was just a pop-up ad in the corner of my screen that I saw. Usually I ignored them and just clicked the close button, but this one for some reason caught my eye and held my attention. There was something familiar about it, even though it was a pretty grainy black and white photo. It didn't look like any of the other advertisements I'd seen on my laptop before. Our office had installed pretty heavy security since we'd had a malware incident before, and now it was rare for me to see any ads on my work laptop at all. I knew better, of course, than to click on any of these pop-ups, but something inside me, maybe the odd feeling that I recognized the person in the advertisement, pushed me to hover the cursor over it. Then I clicked. It truly wasn't a normal advertisement. It took me to a database. The database was a case file containing, of all things, missing persons reports from some time ago. These weren't recent cases, however. After calculating, I found they were from about the time when I was 13 years old. I scrolled through, hovering over the faces, when I saw somebody I definitely recognized. The face and expression were much younger, but I was sure of it. He had all the exact identifiable features of my boss, if he were aged about 30 more years. I clicked the read more button to find a description of his case. It painted him as an extreme introvert, never leaving the house. He was homeschooled, and described as intelligent and promising for his age. It listed some of his academic achievements, and then further below it listed his hobbies. And there it said that he was an avid gamer. It had a small picture of his room, completely full of electronics and old gaming systems. As I looked at the other surrounding faces beside his, it became evidently clear. If I were to imagine, focus and place them 30 years in the future, these were all the faces of my co-workers around me. At this point I feel a cold chill in my blood. This isn't any advertisement at all. Somebody, somewhere is actually trying to communicate something to me. And as I read the descriptions of all the cases of my co-workers around me, I find the same pattern in each. Introverted, shy, intelligent, and all had some kind of passion for gaming in some form. I'd reached the end. That was it. Except sitting at the very bottom there was a small URL with a text in the form of a question. And all it said was, "Do you want to know?" I'd come this far. I expected maybe it would contain some analysis, some psychological profile of my co-workers. It all fit together. Why they would hold on to these games and use these slang words from their childhood. Because they'd lost it. It had been taken from them and they kept trying to relive it in some capacity, even in their adulthood. Or maybe somebody from the police force had saved them and gathered them together. Maybe it was a sort of communion, that they were all able to have similar company to share their hobbies with, a happy ending of a sort for those that faced tragedy. So I braced myself for this kind of explanation and then clicked on it, and there, instead, I saw another grainy black and white photo with a description below just like the others, of myself, 13 years old. So now I wonder who has taken and gathered all of us here. The lights next door. When I moved into Ruby Ridge last year, I knew it was meant to be. The community was small and peaceful. Most of the neighbors were very welcoming, and the houses were absolutely beautiful. I had just gotten out of a terrible relationship that was headed nowhere from the very beginning, and decided I needed a fresh place to start over. I was right. The day I unpacked was the best day of my life. I was free to finally be my own person again without the dead weight of broken promises holding me down. The first night in my new home was jovial as I set up my bedroom the way I wanted. My own private space of peace away from the busy world. Once my bed was made and my string of sold lanterns were hung above the bookshelf, I nestled into the soft glow that illuminated my sanctuary. I sighed as my head gently hit the pillow, ready for sleep to blanket my tired soul, when I saw light turn on just outside of my window. I blinked in that direction and noticed the small glow practically mimicked me, taunting me to come over and look. I groaned as I sat up and made my way over to the window. Peeking through the blinds I noticed the neighbor's porch light was flickering on and off, almost like one of those bug zappers. I pulled the curtains closed and shuffled back to my bed, thinking I would buy them a new light bulb the next day as a neighborly gesture. Now, I don't really remember the dreams I had that night, but the sweat that covered my entire body assured me that they couldn't have been good, and they never did get better. Each morning from that first day I would always wake up the same, tired and sweaty, with echoes of terrified screams trapped inside my mind. I do remember the day I brought the light bulb over to my new neighbors though. Given the Stepford appearance of Ruby Ridge, I assumed their porch lamp was similar to my own. I was very wrong. Carrying over a plate of cookies with the bulb gently wrapped in tissue paper, I gave their door a soft knock. Silence. I tried to knock one more time and the second my knuckles hit their mahogany door, it flew open with a very angry looking man waiting for me on the other side. His soulless eyes gave me a once over before he spit out, "What the fuck do you want?" I stuttered and tried to explain that I was new to the community and had brought him some cookies and a light to fix his. That's all I remember getting out before he slammed the door in my face. I can tell you right now that I never did go back to that house, and honestly, I regret that the most. Every night for almost a year his porch lamp would slip in through my window and lull me to sleep. Its rhythm was calming and I had grown used to the fluorescent glow. It wasn't until he moved away last week that I realized just how sinister that light had really been. I'll never know if the screams I heard for the past year were real. The house was stripped down to bare bones by the time I called the police. What I do know is, the beautiful rhythm I had grown to love, it went to the beat of SOS. The tree and the bell. There should be nothing wrong with the daily tolling of a bell when you live next to a church, nor should there be anything wrong with the sound of rustling leaves when there's a tree with a branch reaching above your first floor balcony. However, I have always found it strange how there always, without fail, seems to be a wind to rouse the tree, but more importantly that the church bell does not ring at even hours or even half hours. It only rings 7 times once a day, exactly at 5:41 according to my phone. To be clear, 5:41 in the morning. Once I noticed this sleep interrupting phenomenon, I called my landlord and asked why they had described this area as a quiet one when there's a regularly scheduled annoyance at a less than nap time. He was surprised to hear it. No other tenants had ever complained about any such thing, but he promised to check with the church himself. The church denied having told the bell at such an early hour and assured that the bell was only used for ceremonies that would not be taking place anywhere near 5:41 in the morning. Bullshit, I thought, but figured they might cut it out now that a complaint had been raised. But the bell kept tolling, every morning, to the gentler sound of stirring leaves. I personally visited the church to complain several times, because they kept denying it. At this point I can't tell if the church staff is more annoyed with me than the other way around. This morning I was at my limit. When the bell tolled, I slipped into a decent enough nightgown and stormed out onto the balcony, ready to aim my frustrations directly at whoever it was that was methodically disturbing my mornings. All the furious air quickly fled my suddenly frozen body. There was no wind today. Perhaps there never had been. What had the leaves in such turmoil was the violent thrashing of a bound woman hanging inches from the floor of the balcony, from a noose in the tree. Her bulging eyes met mine, and though her choking throat could not make any semblance of words, that glossy gaze spoke volumes. She begged for my help, as I'm sure you and I would in her place, but at the same time there was another look in every feature of her face. There was such a petrifying, intense hatred in her, a hatred that left little room for anything else and vowed to destroy all in its path. Hatred for me, like as if I had betrayed her many times before. One thought alone survived my terror. Would she punish me for whatever I had done or not done, if I helped her down? I wish I could say that my compassion and courage won over my shock and fear, but in the end I failed to move, nailed in place, one arm's length away from the pitiable horror, and as the bell rang for a last, 7th time, her struggle ceased. Before the sight of her dissolved like a mirage, her face settled into a grudging glare, and the tree came still once more as the echo of the bell faded. Those eyes never left me, even as she died. This whole day I feel as if I have been haunted by her. I've tried to keep my life up, going to work as usual, but in the back of my head that resentful face has kept me in a constant state of fearful anxiety. Now that the day is turning into evening, I'm more terrified to sleep than ever, because at some point, the clock will strike 5:41 again. If the bell tolls and the tree shakes outside again, I don't know if I'll have the courage to do the right thing and help the woman down. I've incurred her wrath and I dread to think what she'll do when free, but if I don't help her, perhaps I don't deserve any better than the curse of the tree and the bell. Thank you for relaxing with Reddit. Hit that bell for notifications, comment below for requests.